Hello and welcome to Different Facets of Happiness. I'm your host, Jackie Denise, and today I'm extremely happy to welcome Patrick Engasser. Patrick is a best-selling author, motivational speaker, and coach who's dedicated his life to helping people overcome adversity and reach their highest potential. Born blind, Patrick's story is one of resilience, courage, and relentless purpose. In this episode, he'll share how he navigates challenges, the mindset shifts that sustain him, and how he sees the possibility of happiness in places that many overlook. Get comfortable. This is going to be an inspiring one. Patrick, welcome to Different Facets of Happiness. How are you?
I'm great, Jackie. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you for being with us. I'll just get right into it with you, Patrick. From the beginning, you've been blind since birth, of course, yet you've built a seven-figure sales team and inspired thousands. If sighted people could see the world the way that you do for one day, what truth about success would shock them the most?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is perspective. I think that, obviously the topic that you talk about most is happiness. And interestingly enough, most of the clients that I work with as coaching members, when they find me either through my website, patrickengasser.com, and contact me or however they do that, you would think most of the time the biggest thing I focus on is strategy, and I do a lot of that, but that's usually what they think that we're gonna talk about right away, but usually it starts with mindset, right, as you probably know.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of it is perspective, and I'll just be honest, I could look at my blindness like any challenge that anyone's going through in 2 different ways. It could be a huge liability, and trust me, there was definitely a time in my life where I did look at it that way, so I haven't always had the perspective that I do now, and I'm always a work in progress, but the biggest thing is taking my blindness, which is my biggest challenge, at least the one that's the most obvious to people when I walk in the room, and flipping that and turning it into an asset, I feel like is the biggest thing that I do to make a difference for people, because people are always watching us, no matter
Yeah.
who we are. Even if we think it's that nobody is, there's at least someone that's watching us and learning from us. And it's really just what perspective are you giving that person? If they see you navigating challenges and adversity in a way that's inspiring to them, they're going to look at their challenges perhaps differently, and that's always what I'm looking to do. So I'd say that's the biggest thing I hope that people would notice about me when they're around me is the way that I look at, no pun intended, the way that I see this challenge or any other challenge, that I deal with every day, like anybody else.
So let's talk about that a bit more, because when you realized blindness would be your lifelong reality, what was your first mental negotiation with yourself?
Great question. I think that when I was young, you originally just think of yourself like any other child, and until you realize you're getting your butt kicked at basketball every time you play. Eventually you realize, hey, everyone else has this superpower, this sight superpower. But I think originally, I looked at it from the perspective that I think most children do growing up, which is I want to fit in.
Yeah.
And so I looked at that as kind of a negative of I don't fit in, I'm different, and it's very obvious I'm different. Back then I'd walk in with a mobility cane. Now I walk in with either that or a black lab guide dog, which is a big upgrade. He's a lot cuter than a walking cane. But back then, I think I looked at it from the perspective of I don't fit in, and that's where a lot of the negativity or perhaps not having a lot of hope growing up at times as a child. Don't get me wrong, I had great parents, and they did their very best to put me in the best situation as possible. But I think when you're growing up as a young child, self esteem is so important, and at times my blindness definitely made me feel like I didn't fit in. Now, once I got to become an entrepreneur and got into sales later, I realized that not fitting in was a good thing. That separating myself from the pack was actually a positive.
Yeah.
But I had to negotiate differently with myself to your question, as I grew up and started to gain more perspective of who I am and who I wanted to become.
So, what do you think you understood about human potential, but people with perfect vision often overlook?
I think that most people look at the world in many cases of the things that they don't have, and you probably recognize that a lot given your focus on happiness.
Yes.
people look at what they don't have rather than what they do. So it's very easy to look at what we don't have because we always will have less than what we don't, right? There'll always be more things we don't have than what we do. We're always looking at I could have better relationships. I could have, a bigger house. I could have, better vacations I go on. But what I realize about human potential is that two things. Number one, we usually are better than we think we are. We're usually already more equipped to do the things that we want to do than we believe. It's just a matter of finding the way to do that. And usually for me, that was finding someone who was already where I wanted to be and then asking them to be a mentor or taking them to lunch and asking them questions about how did you get where you want to go. But I think that's number one is most people already are better positioned to do what they want to do than they think. They just have some hurdles to get over. And I think the second thing is most people are focused on opportunity in front of them, which is good. It helps us grow, but they're not necessarily measuring how far they've come. So it's very easy to look out, and then this is going to sound silly coming from me, but looking out at the horizon, if you're on a boat, in front of the boat as you're pulling away from shore, it seems like there's just endless opportunity and things that we don't have. And it's very difficult to only stay focused on the goal in front of you rather than how far we've come measuring from the shore to say, hey, look, we started at the shore, but now we're a quarter mile out to sea. So I think that's a big part of it is keeping that perspective of we are making progress. And I think as the people that I work with as a business coach or that I mentor, as they start to realize that they're making progress, they become more optimistic about, hey, I've come this far. If I've done this much, then I can get to where I'm looking to go.
Yes, true. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about your background as a business coach and the sales and leadership aspect of your career. So, as a top count closer, did you ever close a deal in a way that felt almost magical? Were you even surprised yourself?
Yeah, a few times. I can think of one scenario in particular where I walked into to an account and the business owner told me, the prospect said, I only have 5 minutes and I can pretty much tell you that I'm not interested.
I heard that many, many times.
Right away. I don't even think he said hello. So I said, okay, well, I appreciate you giving me the time and at least giving me 5 minutes. And I could have looked at it one of two ways. And part of me wanted to look at this as, okay, this is a waste of time. But I'd realized there's really, unless I'm really offensive, there's nothing I can do in this scenario to mess this up. I can try anything here. I can ask questions that'll hopefully get this person thinking. And that's what I decided to do rather than look at this as a missed opportunity or a wasted time. I thought this is an opportunity for me to grow. Either I'm probably just going to learn from this, and this account isn't gonna turn it this prospect isn't gonna turn into a closed account, but I'm gonna give it my best shot. And I asked some questions I may not have typically asked, and I got him thinking differently. And at the end, he's like, I really didn't think that this was something I wanted to move forward with, but you've changed my mindset on a lot of the things that I thought. Because let's be honest, most of the time people say no. If we have a good product, a good service, it's not that they're not saying no to us. And they're usually not even saying no to the product or service. They're saying no based on information that they have, which usually is incomplete. It's like when people don't like us or say something negative to us. 95, 97, 98%, close to 100% of the time, they're people who don't know everything about us. So they're talking to us based on incomplete information. It's important to remember that. And sometimes it's easy to forget it, but if you can keep that perspective, you can shock even yourself. And in that case, I was really surprised that that turned into a new closed account when he basically told me there was zero chance of that happening.
So, what was the strategy that you used? Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
In that situation,
Yeah. I see. In that situation, and even overall, what's the strategy? Because you're very successful with closing deals and sales. What's the strategy that you use?
yeah, the biggest thing is really focusing on the prospect. A lot of times people they come into a meeting looking at what do I want to get out of this meeting, which is natural. As human beings, we're all dialed into WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? But you really need to shift. At least that's been what's worked for me and worked for the clients that I coach, both in sales and entrepreneurship, is shifting your mindset to learn how to speak prospect. And what I mean by that is coming to that meeting, looking for the pain points and asking questions to help determine how you can help that prospect. If you were that prospect, what would they want to get out of this meeting? How can you help fill in gaps that they have or address pain points that they have? Because once you're able to do that, it becomes a no brainer. So most of the time, people will come in and just give a presentation or do what they call a pitch. Um, what a lot of people would call a pitch. I don't really like pitches, even though a lot of people would still call my presentation a pitch. It's more of a conversation, questions that lead to the answers that will help me find their pain points and the gaps that I can fill in because we all have them.
Yeah.
It's a matter of can we help that person get from where they are to where they want to go, and usually it's they want to get there faster with less effort. If you can help them do that and show them how it's not going to cost them anything or going to cost them less than what they think, then it's usually a no-brainer.
But what if someone that you're coaching says to you, Patrick, I just don't have what it takes. I just can't shift my mindset. How do you dismantle that thought in real time?
Usually it's digging deeper into why do they feel that way? That I don't have what it takes. And usually that comes from a self-limiting belief that they have in the past. So finding what that is, why do they feel that way? And then replacing that with the belief that focusing on the strengths that they do have. A lot of times we want to focus on our weaknesses, and there's the mindset out there that hey, you want to work every day on improving your weaknesses, and obviously there are some weaknesses we should work on improving. If we have, if we're a bad communicator, that's one that's going to hold us back, right? There are certain weaknesses we want to work on, but we all have strengths, and really finding out what those two or three things are that are going to drive us forward in business, or in sales, or in life in general, focusing on those things. So in that case, when someone says, I don't believe I have what it takes, I just can't shift my mindset. A lot of it is number one, finding out what their strengths are and then helping them understand how those strengths can help them do the thing that they want to do to get to where they want to go rather than focusing on the weaknesses, which is really where their mindset is. And it is, and I'm sure you understand this from really how often you focus on happiness and bring people on your podcast to talk about happiness. It's, as I said earlier, it's perspective. If you wake up in the morning and you think today's going to stink, I don't have what it takes. I'm not going to get this deal. This person's going to say no to me.
Yeah.
Look, skill set isn't the only thing that's going to get you there, but that's going to be a huge thing that holds you back if you have that mindset. If you wake up in the morning and the first thing you think of is 10 things you're grateful for, and you have a gratitude ritual first thing in the morning, before your feet even hit the floor, all of a sudden everything shifts. Now it's okay. I already have things to be grateful for. Whether this meeting goes well or not, I know that I'm doing the right thing. My belief in the product is based on fact or the service. I have good intentions. I'm going to go out there and give it my best because this person needs me to do that because I'm looking to help them. So if you have that mentality and you can help that person in my case, as a coach, shift their mindset of having better perspective, waking up in the morning being grateful, and then also focusing on their strengths, that's when people are able to shift their mindset, even if they feel like they're stuck.
So is that the daily habit that you use in order to shift your mindset with starting off with what your gratitude? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like gratitude and unhappiness, they can't pay rent and live in the same building or in the same mind, at the same time. So if you're grateful and you start your day being grateful and you end your day being grateful, looking at the things that you accomplished that day, even if there's something small before you go to bed, and then wake up the next morning and think of things you're grateful for, whether it be your family, where you live. It could even be small things. I live in Florida. I have air conditioning,
Yeah.
sometimes it's something as simple as, the things that you have that other people in the world don't have. When you start your day that way, it's very difficult to let little things knock you off your path. Obviously, if tragedy hits any of us, it's going to be difficult to not have that knock us off balance. But when we're dealing with day-to-day life, we have so many things that if we focus on the little things that are a problem or that we see as a challenge, we can get really frustrated with that and it can ruin our day. If you start your day with gratitude and keep that in mind throughout your day, that perspective will keep you grounded and centered and keep you moving forward toward the things that are going to help you grow.
But people face adversity all the time. So, do you believe people need adversity to grow into greatness, or can success be built in calm waters too?
I think it can be built in both, but I definitely think adversity shapes people in ways that calm waters don't. I think that if you're living in a time of prosperity that in the world or for yourself, that's great. But sometimes we don't recognize it when that's going on. It's just like, oh, everything's good. We're moving along the way we want to. But adversity is, at least I can speak from my own perspective and the people I coach. Adversity is usually something we don't recognize as a positive when we're going through it. My faith as a Christian now probably has given me more hope and different perspective on adversity. But even when I'm going through adversity at times, it's difficult when you're in the midst of it to think of it as a positive. But usually when you come out the other side of that adversity, you realize that, hey, I gained a new skill, or I am more resilient than I was before, or I worked on a shift in mindset, or I have a different perspective on things. That's going to help you get to the next level better than you would if all the waters were only calm. And the second thing is, when you're going through a time of adversity, it might be something that's personal to you, but there's often times that adversity is everywhere, maybe the whole world, or like in the case of the pandemic in 2020, 2021, everyone was dealing with adversity. Or when there's, recession, um, that's a time when most people are dealing with those same headwinds. Most people are not going to see adversity as a positive. Most people are not going to shift their mindset and say, okay, this is difficult, but where can I find a silver lining and how can I find opportunity? Because very true. There are people who have huge successes during times of tremendous adversity. The majority of people don't. So what's the difference? The difference is people choose to look for opportunity during that time of adversity when most people are looking at the obstacles.
Very, very true. So, Patrick, if you had to design a three-step blueprint for success, considering your sales background and leadership background, is something that's simple and unforgettable, what would it look like?
It's a great question. So the first thing is, yeah, it really comes down to mindset, skill set, and action. You've got to build the mindset first. You've got to have belief first. The attitude comes first. If you don't have that, now obviously this is built hopefully simultaneously alongside the skill set. But if you don't have the mindset, as I said earlier, you can have all the skills in the world. We all know someone who we've met or who we've been around, and you think, how is that person not successful? They have all these things going for them. They have these skills. They just don't seem to recognize it. It's because the mindset's not there. The second thing is building skill sets. So continuing to work on and sharpen the things that you need, the skills that you need in order to succeed in the area of life or business or sales that you want to succeed in. And a lot of that comes from finding someone, whether that be a coach, a mentor. This is what I do every day, and what I love doing is helping people to see those skills in themselves and then to sharpen and build skills in the areas where they need to. So if when it comes to sales, how to prospect, how to find new clients, how to get in front of the right prospect rather than someone who isn't a good prospect to work with, how to present in a way that's going to move that person to action. So, you can obviously read books, which I highly recommend in your field. You can read, if you're looking to improve your relationships, you can read books, related to that. You can take courses. But for me, the biggest shortcut to success is finding someone who's already where you want to be, but and having that person help you and guide you through, because you're going to get there so much faster around the obstacles that you're not going to think of and have to find through trial and error without that person. So mindset first, then skill set, and then the last one is taking action, because we can have all the greatest mindset in the world, you can have all the skills in the world, but if you're not going to take action and put that and implement that and put that into action, you're never going to get where you want to go. So MSA, mindset, skill set, action.
I like it. So, what impact do you hope your story leaves on other entrepreneurs and not just the next generation of dreamers?
That's a great question. So my book, If I Can Do It, You Can Do It, I wrote that book because, and the title hopefully it makes this clear. As I said, when I walk into a room, there's no getting around the fact that it's obvious right away I'm blind. So I have what most people would look at as a significant challenge or adversity that I deal with every day. I don't necessarily always think of it that way, but I think that's the perspective. And at first that bothered me that people were seeing me as a blind person first rather than just a person until they got to know me. But I eventually realized that that was an asset. It was an opportunity for me to, as you just said, make an impact on the world and get people to understand that, hey, if I can do it, if I can succeed, and I'm by no means the, you know, the most successful person in the world, but if I can have a level of success that some people would look up to, then whatever their challenges are, whatever they're dealing with in their life that may not be as obvious to the outside world, they can overcome those challenges too. If I can take my perceived liability in terms of a physical challenge and turn that into an opportunity, then whatever it is that they're dealing with, they can do the same thing. And most of the time, it's someone who's been through the fire who can lead other people through the same fire. So if somebody is dealing with a challenge in their own life, let's say they're an alcoholic and they are able to overcome that. The person who I want to help me, if I'm an alcoholic, quit drinking is someone who's already done it. So for me, right, that's the person who's going to lead us through that same fire and give us the step by step blueprint on how to get there. So for me, that really is my dream with my book, is for it to impact the lives of people, who feel like they're meant for more, but they're not sure how to get there. And they want to shift their mindset and look at adversity as, yeah, it's a challenge. And sometimes we have really big challenges in our life, people we are close to passing away or, bad illness, things like that, car accidents. If that happens, obviously that takes longer to get through, but the normal day-to-day challenges or something that someone may perceive as, "Hey, I was born with this hand that was dealt to me," so to speak, or this weakness that I have, if they can look at that as just simply adversity that they need to get around, or that they can even use as a stepping stone to their success, and I inspire someone to do that, then that will make me super happy.
Well, Patrick, you've given us so much today about resilience, success, and what it really means to live life fully. If there's one thing though that you'd love our listeners to carry away with starting today, immediately after, like right now, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing I talked about perspective earlier, but beyond that, I would say that live the life that you want to live. Look for what would, and obviously we talked earlier, happiness doesn't come from what you have or status or money or any of those things. But what difference, what impact would you like to make on the world? Because I believe that's the big picture, right? If it's all about you, which I know for your listeners it isn't, but it helps us all remind us all. If it's about us, which it's easy to fall back into that pattern, it's easy to think small and to not have to live a life that's filled with purpose and fulfillment. If it's about a bigger mission, making an impact on those around us, it could just be our family. I mean, if all I do is my son's 3 years old, if all I do is my wife and I raise an awesome person who goes on to make a bigger difference in the world than I did, but some of what I've done to model that for him in some way makes an impact on him, then I'm good with that. But it could start as how do I be the best parent I can be and make an impact on my children? It could be how can I be the best spouse? It could be that simple. How do I, as I talk about in my book, if I can do it, you can do it. How do I feed the inner circle first? And then out from there, how do I make a bigger, broader impact on the world? Whether that's volunteering, whether that's the work that you do making a difference and knowing that that's your purpose. But live a purpose driven life. Find out what that is. What's your reason why you're here? Because, whether you're a person of faith or just someone who believes that, hey, I'm here to do something more than just exist, either way, find your reason, as I talk about in my book. Find your reason for existence. Some people would call it your why, your purpose, and then invest the rest of your life shaping your life and your mission based on that why. If you do that, it's very difficult to live a life of unhappiness and unfulfillment because you're doing something that you know is making an impact and leaving a legacy.
And you're being of service to others.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Patrick, thank you very much for being on this show. It is wonderful to have you on. I always feel that every guest leaves me with something. You definitely left me with a different perspective today that I'm grateful for. Thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate it.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Different Facets of Happiness. A heartfelt thank you to Patrick and Engasser for sharing so openly and reminding us that happiness isn't guaranteed by our circumstances, but emerges from the ways that we meet them. I hope his journey and wisdom leave you motivated to lean into your challenges and seek joy in the everyday. If you love this chat, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a boost. Until next time, I'm Jackie Denise, wishing you light, courage, and the many facets of happiness. Take care.